What's up, guys? Jaclyn Baker here, Miss Fitness International and 8-time Fitness Olympian. I'm going to do a recap of a little bit of my Mr. Olympia 2025 competition weekend. So going into peak week, I felt the best I've ever felt. My body was responding the best it's ever responded. My mental game was at like a bazillion. I've never felt so calm going into the last couple weeks of a show and actually going into peak week. So that being said, my routine was right where it needed to be. I felt very strong. I was very excited to perform it. I worked really hard on the music, the storytelling of the routine, costume, all the things. So going into show day, like I said, my body was responding very, very well. I personally, and my coach Damien personally thinks it was the best I've ever looked on stage. We really were able to get me lean enough where we could fill me up enough to give me the shape that I have and I've developed. I'm genetically not gifted with a very quote unquote X frame or hourglass shape with a very small waist, wide clavicles. I'm just not built like that. I'm a little more straight up and down. So in order to give me that shape, I've had to develop the muscle in my lats, my quads, my shoulders, and I've done that. But over the years, I've kind of battled that getting too lean, getting too full, looking soft, and haven't really found the happy medium. And I think this competition, this package that we presented was the closest we've ever gotten to that. And I was very, very proud of that. I felt really great on stage for prejudging and posing rounds. I landed third in the physique round. Very proud of that. Like I said, I'm not as genetically gifted as some of the other women up there. Genetically gifted for bodybuilding structure is what I mean. They're built very, much broader than me and then teeny tiny waist. So to stand up next to them with what I've done with my physique over the years, I was very, very proud. I also was proud of my posing. I worked very hard on that presentation this year just to bring a little bit something different. So overall, that was a 10 out of 10 for me on the posing round. Went into the routine round feeling very confident, very calm. I'm just gonna go over kind of what happened and what transpired because I feel like a lot of people were confused, and so I'm just gonna explain it. So basically, this year I started my routine off stage. Most years, I think, actually every year I start on stage, the music plays. This year we wanted to do something different. We wanted to kind of have some sort of shock value. So started off stage, the music started, and then I kind of bust onto stage very, very quickly, which in past years, I tend to start my routines a little bit slower and then start moving fast. So I was backstage waiting for my music to be played. They said, Jaclyn Baker, or New York, whatever Bob Chicarella says, and ready for my music, and it's not my music. I don't know what music it is. So I turned to Caden. So now the stage is over here, and I turned backwards and I said, that's not my music. And he kind of just looked at me like, and I was like, that's not my music. And he then headphoned to Martine and said, that's not her music. And I was like this, saying, that's like kind of freaking out at that point. That's not my music. And the song that was playing never ended, and no one said to me, we're switching your music. It just went like this. That's not my music. And then my music started playing. So I was completely out of it. My music started playing here. In my head, in my whole life of dance land, the show must go on, right? Your music plays, you go. Your music stops, you keep going. The stage collapses, you keep going. To not to exaggerate, but that's the way it works in what I call dance land or theater land. So my music played, and I had a thought, and I was like, and I went to say start it over, and then in my head, the beginning intro of my song was supposed to hit so hard because of the words he was saying. And so in my head, if the audience had already heard that and they already heard my music, it defeated the whole purpose of restarting it over. The anticipation and the shock and the energy was already missed if I was to replay it, if that makes sense. And then it wasn't even a thought in my head to stop because I turned back and started to say, can you start it over? And then in my head, I was like, that's not a thing. We don't do that. So I went. Rewind, the beginning of my song was, if you're familiar with Meek Mill, he says, ain't this what you've been waiting for? You ready? And then I busted out into the audience. Onto the stage. That was the idea of the song. Again, had a lot of meaning to me, maybe it didn't matter to the audience, but for me it mattered. So, getting to the story, I then busted on stage, I do my skill. At that point, my personal opinion on where I am as an athlete, if I am not completely 100% focused on what I'm doing, I risk injury. And that's how I am in rehearsals. I am 100% focused. I know exactly what skill I'm doing. If I'm skipping a skill to save it for injury purposes or just save my body, I know that I'm skipping that skill prior to even starting the routine in rehearsal. So on stage, my brain is always safe, move slow, move controlled, perform, have fun. Those are like the things that I focus on. That being said, my head was in a whirlwind. So did my skills, coming out, kept going up at exactly 18 seconds. I went up for a leap. I landed laterally on my foot. I knew at that moment that I had really messed it up. The next skill I went into, press handstand. And then from then on, no, I did not feel pain. But that is the moment that I fractured my foot. So went on to finish my routine. I don't think from what I've been told that anyone knew that I hurt my foot. They just saw like a little bobble. I think the only people who maybe noticed is my sisters and choreographer. So I finished the routine. I came off stage very, very upset. Probably the most upset I've ever been after performing. Normally I come off stage, I'm elated. I am so proud of myself. I had the time of my life. Even if I had little bobbles, I'm like, oh, that sucked. But like overall, it felt so good to be up there. I was not myself on that stage, and that is probably the hardest thing of it all. So it is what it is. I don't think I've ever cried on camera. I don't know if it would have mattered for my placing at all, and that's not really what upsets me the most. What upsets me is that I worked so hard and there was a mishap that wasn't my fault, then I couldn't perform to the best of my ability because I feel like that mishap then led me to mishap. And I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, because I truly believe as a performer, I should have been able to mentally focus and get in the game, and I just couldn't. After that, I sent a picture to my dad, who is a podiatrist who was there with me, and he said, pretty sure you fractured your fifth metatarsal. I said, I'm pretty sure too. So taped it up, got some ice, went on for awards. Very happy for Shelly. She's a great athlete. She came in, I believe, first for physique. I'm not sure if she was first or second, but some really strong skills. She's really been working hard. She took first, I took second. Very proud of that second. Was it a hit for me? Yeah. I really, thought this was my chance to take the title, but it didn't happen. But all in all, what I'm most upset about is the way the performance went down. So that's my long story short. Sorry you had to watch that emotional whatever just happened. I did then overnight a boot to Vegas because I knew that it was broken. My dad knew it was broken. Like I said, he was there with me. So we got me in a boot right away. I got home, got an x-ray, and I did fracture my fifth metatarsal. The good thing is I fractured it in the middle of the shaft of the bone, not at the base. It was a clean fracture. So it looks like I will be in this boot for 6 weeks. And I'm going to reassess and have x-rays, follow-up x-rays after 3 weeks to see if it's healing. I'll then, do some PT, get back in the game mentally of getting comfortable jumping on my feet again. I've had a lot of questions of if I'm going to continue to compete, because I know I kind of always say I'm near the end of my career, and I am. I don't have any decisions made yet as far as what is next for me in bodybuilding land. Taking some time to kind of let the dust settle from all of this, because it was such a tough weekend for me. And I think that's pretty much the wrap up of the Olympia weekend. I was there with my family and friends. I had friends surprise me. I had all my family there, which was really nice. My nieces, nephews, my sisters-in-laws. So overall, I did have a really, really nice time. And my prep in Phoenix was incredible. I've never had so much fun. I've never felt so good. I've never felt so calm. So, leading up to Friday and Friday night, everything was really fantastic. Updates on now. I am back in New York City. I am back to my normal life. I am still working on adding more workouts to my subscription app. I still have my one-on-one coaching app, and I'm also starting a metabolic health school course. So I've started that this week. Really looking forward to learning more about HRT, metabolic health, and peptide therapy. And going into that, my food, because I know a lot of people want to know about my food, I always stick to a plan year round. I keep all my food very, very similar. I start to implement different, maybe vegetables, different carb sources, but it's all pretty much the same. So we're keeping my calories a little lower, and they're not really low for me in off season, but they are lower than what we had expected because my body was so responsive. We thought we'd be able to eat a little bit more going into this improvement season. We're gonna keep it a little bit lower just because my activity level is a little lower as far as I'm not walking as much and my leg workouts aren't as heavy or as many exercises because I just can't do that right now. My upper body workouts are completely the same, and I'm riding the bike instead of walking, but I'm trying to be mindful and not overdo it on my foot. So that's my food. Trying to hit 10,000 steps. Sometimes I go a little bit under. I'm not forcing myself to get that because I know I need to heal my foot. Workout split is still chest. I'm sorry, I don't do chest. Shoulders, back, legs, shoulders, back, legs. I am keeping 6 days in when normally I drop to 4 or 5, just because again, I'm not that as active. So I want to keep the caloric burn a little bit higher. Peptides, I was doing oral BPC. I am now stopping that and doing injections of BPC and TB 500 to help to heal this. I'm still on the SLU PP 332, which I love. And I'm still doing the tesamorelin. So I'm keeping everything really pretty much the same. We'll do labs in 6 weeks. We kind of let my hormones and cortisol and everything kind of come to a quote unquote normal, and then we run labs. So usually about 6 weeks out from a competition. So right now that is all of my updates that I can think of. I truly, truly appreciate the support and love that you guys showed me on Olympia weekend and that you show me throughout the year. It truly means a lot to me. I've had a lot of really nice messages, and I do remember them all. I see them all, and I am thankful for your support. So as always, keep following my journey and I'll keep updating you. And if you have any questions or want to see anything else from me, please drop it in the comments or message me on Instagram.